Hey, what is up guys? My name is Griefdrums and today we're taking a look at the mid-season reinforcements for Operation Blood Orchid. So as we know, we're getting to halfway through the season and as a result we're getting the mid-season reinforcements. These usually contain things like operator buffs, some slight gameplay changes, potentially nerfs to operators, you know, plenty of other fixes and just bug patches, you know. So as a result, we're going to break it all down and have a look at it today. Now, the first thing that we met on this screen is the Reworked Operators. Now, the Reworked Operator, as you can see, the first one is Kapkan. Kapkan's been tested on the TTS quite a bit in various iterations, and we kind of saw this one coming. It's been a long time coming, but a lot of people have played with this version of Kapkan on the TTS. I myself really enjoyed playing as Kapkan when he was on the TTS like this. I think it's quite a nice addition. I just think it's coming at the wrong time. I would have loved to have seen all these changes to Kapkan months ago. But anyway, the long and short of it is he's going to get 5 entry denial devices instead of the 3 that he currently carries. And they're going to be harder to see. What that means is that the laser, after a second, as you can see in this video, it shows and then it disappears. The laser cuts off after about a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds. You just won't be able to see it anymore. And this is sort of like a glitch that was in the game back in like Season 1 or Season 2. Where you used to be able to do this by putting it on and taking it off at the same time, and you would basically just trick the system into realizing there's no laser. So as a result, you saw a lot more kills. Now, because of this, the devs have seen it to be too powerful. So instead of doing lethal damage like it always has, Kapkan's traps are only going to do 60 damage. Now, from a bit of testing that we did with Core Ross when we were playing the TTS, it looks as if 60 damage is only going to be on the less armoured operators. Now, I'm not sure if that's in this final iteration of the game, but 60 damage was to the 1 armour and 3 speeds. And people like Montaigne were taking, I think it was 40 damage. So it sort of ranges between those depending on what kind of operator and character you are. So as I alluded to a little bit, I don't think Kapkan is going to be any more viable in the sense of I think he's going to be a better pick, don't get me wrong. They're also changing his speed from 1 speed operator to 2 speed. So he's going to be a lot faster. He's still not going to be the best. He's not going to be the fastest around the map like Bandit or Jaeger or Ela. But he is going to be able to move around a hell of a lot more. This is going to allow him to get out and about on the map and place his traps at the beginning of a round before coming back to the site if he wanted to anchor, for example. Now, the really good thing about this is the fact that they only do 60 damage means you're not going to kill anyone. But by the time the enemy actually make it to you, if they haven't spotted your traps, their health is going to be really friggin' low. I mean, whilst this isn't lethal damage, please don't misunderstand me. If you're on 20 health and you get hit by one of these, I'm fairly confident you're still going to die. Because, you know, you do 60 damage to someone who's on 20, do the maths, you know? They do allude a little bit to here, this is sort of to combat the rushing of doorways, and people are going to have to adapt and try and get around things a little bit more. Because although you can shoot Kapkan traps out quite easily, that often means exposing yourself across a door frame or a doorway, which someone could be covering. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays into the meta, but with so many trap operators already in the game, it's a little bit frustrating, I think. It's just going to be too many traps. The next big change we're seeing is to Blitz. Now, hashtag buff Blitz is well and truly enforced. The devs have been looking at him. As we know, he got a hitbox rework, but now he's able to sprint with his shield still up. As you're most likely aware, at the minute, when you run with Blitz's shield, or any of the shield operators, they put them down by their side to sprint, and this leaves their head open to being shot at. So Blitz can now push on operators a lot faster with his shield up and that added protection. Obviously, this means his legs are exposed, but in the TTS, I was amazed at how much ground he could close down in a very short amount of time, because you're so used to Blitz being this slow, bimbling character, you think he's at the other end of the corridor. By the time he gets to me, I could have looked and shot about 3 or 4 different people. But by the time you turn around, he's actually next to you, flashing you, and you think, Jesus Christ, how much ground did you close down then? That was insane. So this is something that's going to really alter the meta, I think, and it's going to really adjust how the games are played. The only issue to Blitz is obviously he's got to go up against all of these traps, so it's kind of 6 to 1, half a dozen of the other. You can close ground a lot quicker, but you're going to get trapped when you do. So I can't wait to test this and play it with all of the operators, and to test it in a real and a natural scenario where you haven't got him getting picked every single round, and you haven't got Kapkan as a definite every single round, because that's what happens on the TTS. Minor changes are introduced, and those operators and those changes are just, they are the things that are played every single round without fail, so you know to look out for things. That's not always going to be the case, especially not when the game starts to settle down, so I cannot wait to just sort of get this in, try it out, and see what works and what doesn't. The next and final reworked operators is Ela. Now, Ela is getting a little bit of a nerf, and in my opinion, quite rightly so. Her SMG is going to be getting a recoil balance, and she's losing one of her Gersmot mines. I apologise if I've not said that correctly. I'm not Polish. But anyway, the devs have announced that Ela's win rate and pick rate are too high when compared to other operators. Anyone thinking of Ash here? But the Gersmot mines that Ela places, they deemed she was able to cover 2 bomb sites. And they don't want that. 2 bomb sites and still save a mine for her roaming, they say there. So they kind of want to force you to look at where you're placing these and to place them a lot more tactically rather than just sort of throwing them on the doorway of the objective and running away. They want you to think about it a little bit more. I think this is the right decision. She is in a very, very powerful position at the minute. She's one of those operators that can really do some damage if used correctly. In another attempt to nerf her a little bit and to reduce her, ability and how good she is, they're also reducing the Scorpion, as I mentioned. It's just too powerful. So what they've done is they've raised the speed at which you reach maximum recoil, so it's going to be a lot quicker. And they've also increased the impact of the maximum recoil. So in a nutshell, it's going to have more recoil in a shorter amount of time. It's going to hit that top recoil a lot quicker, and it's going to be harder to control it. Now, this doesn't mean that her gun is not going to be usable. You're just going to have to use it in bursts instead. A lot more similar to the SMG-11. With the amount of rounds, though, that she carries in this rifle, I mean, she's going to be able to tap fire for days, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. She's still going to be strong. Next up, we've got the release of the Jaeger Elite skin. It looks really nice. There's no shying away from that. As most of you know, I'm not a huge fan of the implementation of the older costumes and the older, gear. I don't find it particularly in keeping with the game, but there's no denying they look really nice. So, if you're into these and you enjoy the Elite skins and you want to support the game, go ahead and buy it. It does look pretty cool. I just think it's more suited to something like Battlefield 1 in my own opinion, but hey, each to their own, eh? So the next bit of information we get in the patch notes is network improvements and other changes. Now, they have alluded to this a little bit. There was a dev blog about ping and latency, and it broke everything down a little bit and explained Pika's advantage, and it showcased it in some videos. The only problem with these videos for me is that it didn't showcase it brilliantly, because the person that was peeking was walking out from behind cover at the slowest of speeds, and that's not really how people exploit it. So without getting into all of that, the changes that we're going to be seeing are things like latency alignment. It's a change that's going to allow the server to mirror the reaction time of a shooter with an unstable connection more accurately. Pawn-to-pawn physics, reducing the upper limit of latency required to initiate extra hit validation steps. So if your connection isn't brilliant and you fire a load of shots on someone, because your connection isn't great, the server's going to say, well, hang on a minute, I think we need to double check these shots and make sure they're actually going where that person's computer says they're going, and it's going to have another look at it to make sure that the right shots land. The same thing is going to work for hit validation improvements. As you can see here, the optimization, they're optimizing the replication of action, so a more responsive experience for players and a reduction of latency, which is a nice step in the right direction. Processing delay and ping. Currently the ping value displayed in the menus includes the processing delay. So if you played the TTS, you will know that when we were on there, the numbers for pings were ridiculously low. And it just seemed insane that we could all be connecting at like 12 to 14 milliseconds. And it was just so different to what people normally play at. You normally see, high pings of 150 to 300. Somewhere in that region. There's always at least one person on a team in every game that's got between 150 and 300 ping, without a doubt. If you find a game without one, please send me a screenshot. But during the TTS, the highest ping we saw was like 40 milliseconds, and it was such a difference. Core Ross alluded to the fact that it might just be a placebo, but what it actually is the processing delay and ping they are removing the processing delay from the way that we see it. So you're going to see lower pings, but it's not actually reduced the ping, it's just the value shown that is lower. Next up, we've got connectivity icons. So these are going to be a series of adjustments that allow you to figure out what is going on with your game. So if you shoot someone in the head and it's not working, the blood's coming out but nothing's happening, you probably should have one of these little symbols on your screen. Now, it could be that you've got a high ping, it could be that your connection's poor, you could have an issue with the update rate or the host. And if the host stability isn't great, that's obviously going to have a bearing on your gameplay and what you're seeing and what is happening in game. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of the videos on Reddit where people are complaining about hit registration, having one of these icons on there to say that their ping was bad at the time or the connection was bad, and it's going to make it a lot easier for devs to sort of break down what exactly was going on in that situation, rather than just seeing the bullet land on that enemy's head and, you know, you land the headshot but it doesn't do anything, because that happens on countless occasions. Now we're going to know why it was, or at least we're going to get a point in the right direction of why it was. Other changes include things like the Lone Wolf Terrorist Hunt renown. They did remove the ability to gain renown if you're doing Terrorist Hunts Lone Wolf. I'll be honest, I remember this being mentioned, but since then I've done a lot of Lone Wolf Terrorist Hunts and still gained renown. Now, whether I'm actually gaining that renown or not, I don't know, but it was certainly showing me getting renown. So I find it a little bit weird, but anyway, you can now gain Lone Wolf Terrorist Hunt renown, but they are adjusting it slightly. Renown in situations and Lone Wolf Terrorist Hunt will be earned based on the amount of time you spend playing, as opposed to your total score at the end of the game. Now, the issue I've got with this is that I remember seeing loads of videos from people saying the easiest way to farm renown, and it was just leave your game on, and you would do it on defend mode, and you would die at the beginning of the round, but you would gain some... I don't know, I never did it, so I don't know the ins and outs of it, but they basically just left it on and played loads of time on the game. So if it's based on the amount of time you spend playing, surely people are going to do this. They're going to start a terrorist hunt mission, they're going to leave their controller or their PC just running in the background and slowly gain, you know, points. So I find this a really odd decision personally, but then again I found it an odd decision to remove it in the first place. Surely there's better ways to get around it, but again, I don't know what else to suggest. There are loads of bug fixes coming as well. We knew that the castle barricade one that was causing everyone's FPS to drop, we knew that was getting fixed. There's also the Montaigne glitch somewhere. I can't seem to see it. I've probably gone past it about 10 times. No, I can't see it. But Montaigne used to be able to shoot through his shield when it was fully deployed, and that has now gone. There's also plenty of other fixes. For example, Tachanka was able to make his Tachanka turret. He was able to duplicate it thousands of times. There's some interesting videos out there where you go into, or someone goes into a room and there's like 8 turrets set up, and there's only 5 people on the team, for Christ's sake. You don't need 8 turrets, but there were loads of turrets. So the fact that you could do this, they've had a look at it and they've patched it, and that's now gone. There are all sorts of level design fixes, game mode fixes, all the usual stuff that we expect to see. I'm not going to list every single one of them. I will put a link to this down in the description below so you can see it. But I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I'd love to hear your opinions. What do you think of all the changes? Do you think the kapkan buff is a buff, or do you think it's actually going to be a negative to him? What do you think? Are you happy that Ela's getting a little bit of a nerf? Let me know down in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider hitting that thumbs up. It really does help. And if you don't already, make sure to subscribe. But until next time, guys, stay reckless and relentless.